then he said, don't worry, I'll be on right when it gets started. And now I'm talking to myself. Hi, happy Tuesday. Welcome to Drinks with the Leaders. My friend Scott will be here soon. I think it's mostly his friends that watch this. So welcome. If you are watching, let me know if you're watching from Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. We are live every Tuesday. Next week, we're going to have a special guest. I will be out, but Scott will be here with a special guest next week. So that'll be cool. Oh, look who's coming. Maybe. Says he's totally about to come. There you are.
Woo!
Right on time. How are you?
Exactly. Wonderful, Erin. How are you doing?
I'm good. What's going on, Scott? This is weird. We usually talk every day, all day, like throughout the day, and I haven't talked to you in a week.
Well, you've been doing some pretty big things coast to coast, so you should educate the audience on how many people were in line at a recent audition you're at.
Listen, I did a post about this on LinkedIn, so most people probably saw this on because that posted pretty well. But there were so many emotions when I went that. So I took my son to New York to do what they call a non-equity open audition, which means that you don't have your union card for an actor. A lot of times when you're younger, before you go to college, you don't have that, or before you work some professional acting, you don't have that. And so this Broadway audition for The Outsiders musical, so you would fill in on Broadway and then also be on the traveling show. They had an non-equity open audition, which is it only happens every few years for shows, right? It really depends who the directors are. And so we decided to go do it because you had to be 18 years old at least, but play 16 years old. The Outsiders is his favorite show. So we went and did it. And luckily, it was in the same place he just had his auditions for college at. So we kind of knew the area. So we got the hotel right across, which, by the way, if you ever go to New York, you've got to stay at the New Yorker. It's like an old school. It's one of the first hotels ever. It's right by Madison Square Garden. One of my favorite places to stay. They have the old posters from back in the day when it was like $3 for a night. It's one of my favorite places. But so we stayed at the New Yorker and we went out there. So we thought we'll go out there at 5:30. The list will start at 9. They'll start giving people times to come back. We got out there at 5:30 and we were at least number 100 in line already. And 700 people show up for this audition. So they show up at 9 o'clock, they get their numbers, and then they know when to come back to audition. And they were all young boys, right? Like you had to be a 10 or you had to be 18. Those directors saw every single one of them that day. It was insane. They saw every single one. So really, we didn't need to get there till 9, but you never know. So we were out in the freezing cold. New York was so cold at 5:30, but it just made me see like these boys were just like so excited and dreaming so hard. And they still like had all of this like life in them, right? About what their careers were going to look like. And I just thought this is like invigorating to be around versus all the adults that are usually just trying to make it through the day that I'm around. So it was a pretty cool thing to see. So I'm excited for them.
It's kind of like when someone starts at Bestway International or when they started Evardy Construction, they're like, I'm going to take on the world.
Well, I mean, to your point, we love our sponsors. Absolutely love them. But remember, I mean, you and I have worked our jobs for so long, but remember your first day, how excited you are and how much like I want to start feeling that again. Like, how do you get that feeling back? I think that's why people go through midlife crises. I was thinking about this. I went down a whole rabbit trail, but that's why people buy the cars and get the sleeve tattoos when they're 45, aka my age. It's because they're trying to get that feeling back, that feeling of like, what if, like, you know, this could be.
Can I be with you when you get your tattoo?
Listen, I did get it. Remember, I got this midlife crisis.
That's right. I did. Yep, I do.
I already did it. But I'm just saying, it was an exciting experience. Okay, look, Paul says he's watching.
Yeah.
Look, because apparently it's summer now. It did a switch up.
Should we have Paul come over to your pool this summer and then we'll do more of our comedic writing together?
I don't know if I need Paul knowing where I live.
No, Paul and I will, we'll shake up the drinks. We'll make them, and then we'll do comedic writing for the show.
We should totally have a pool party this summer. I do think that. But, okay, sir. Well, let's do this. Nobody is here to talk to us. Nobody.
For the guests.
Us. They are here for our guests. Let me get to your favorite music of the worst music. All right. We have 2 amazing people today. We're going to bring them both in, and then we're going to get started. First guest today is Russ and Chris. Don't dance that music. It's terrible.
I like Chris's power run in there. I'm going to steal that.
I try.
He's on a treadmill right now, so
we're going. I'm learning all these new things for my kids on how to go viral, so I'm just trying to figure out what that secret is. But
ooh, nice.
I know something about that or two.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm telling you right now, don't learn from the kids because the kids can go viral for no
exactly
reason. You got to have some strategy when you're old because old people just don't go viral. No offense. The old people don't just go viral for no reason. There's got to be some strategy in there.
I hear you.
Those kids go viral over the dumbest things. It makes me so jealous. I always tell my daughter, I'm like, you're lucky there was no social media when I was your age. That'd be so
we wouldn't probably all have the jobs we have right now if there was social media back when we had.
All right, Russ, you ready?
Let's do it.
Who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
So I am a growth catalyst for Acumen. It's a fancy word for CEO peer coach. And Acumen's a community for CEOs and business owners here in Kansas City. And we help improve decision-making, increase performance, enhance profitability, and provide guidance and counseling. So I've been in Kansas City 30 plus years. So how I got here was right out of college. Met my wife at the zoo, and so she lived here in Kansas City, and so that's kind of why I got here. So.
Wait, back up. Where'd you meet your wife?
Mizzou.
Mizzou.
Don't ask, Scott. Don't ask.
Now tell us about your business career prior to what you're doing today.
So business career was in a family business, 30 plus years, and ran that business for about 5 years until we transitioned it to private equity. And then I stayed in private equity for about 3 years and just kind of learned a whole new set of playbooks and a bunch of different things on how to run a business, how to grow a business.
And why would people know the business that you sold and ran? Why would people around the country know what it is?
Yeah, it's Old World Spices. So if you think about barbecue in Kansas City or anywhere in the country, we were probably the manufacturer of the barbecue spices and seasonings and sauces that they used. So you think of all the big names in town, we were probably making their products for them. And then we took that product nationwide for those folks and actually made the base for Kansas City barbecue a little bit broader from a national standpoint.
So when you think about what you do today, you can talk to the CEOs and say, hey, I've been in your shoes. So how have those conversations been going?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of common threads to look at, especially if it's a family business or any type of business. Like, hey, how do we grow today? Well, you've got to talk about, what do you want to end up being? What's the vision? What's the strategy? What's the structure underneath that? And does it all kind of work together to ladder up to, sustainable growth?
How do you feel about business coaches that have not grown businesses? When people come to you and they say, I've also been working with this coach, but that coach hasn't grown a business. How do you feel about them?
Yeah, it's a little bit harder because you haven't sat in the seat. And, I was lucky enough that I've been in Acumen for 8 years. So when I took over the CEO role, I went to Acumen to help me grow the business. And that's eventually how we got to a successful exit. And then also, working within private equity, it's a whole new set of structure that you have to deal with there.
That was a very political answer. I don't think it hasn't grown a business.
This is live and it's recorded. You got to play nice in the sand.
His competition will be on next week. So
yeah,
I think if they haven't been there, how do they know how to go? That's my personal opinion. I'll just say it. Russ,
yeah, work with Russ is what we're trying to say.
We got to be more political. All right, Chris, who are you? What do you do? And how do you get to Kansas City?
I'll start off. I already told Aaron this, but Scott, this is such a small world. I literally just had lunch with Russ on the 14th. Russ and I go way back. So I getting into what I do for a living, but he was one of my prospects when he was at Old World Spices. And so we worked together, 5 or 6 years before he exited. So I got on the LinkedIn page today for Drinks with Leaders and saw the beautiful pictures of both of us. And I said, holy crud, this is
texting each other like, oh man, we're going to be on together.
Right. So I had emailed him. I said, "What a small world." But Chris Stine, Kansas City my whole life. So how I got here, you can talk to my parents. But I actually moved away. So I went to University of Kansas after graduating college. I was bored with Kansas, so I said I got to go somewhere else. Moved away. Actually went a couple different spots before I finally ended up in Chicago, and I was there for 16 years. After having too large of a family to be in Chicago and afford to live in Chicago, my wife and I decided to move back and get help from my family. So we moved back in 2016. I started a commercial banking group with Chase Bank, partnered up with a gentleman here in Kansas City, and we built out the middle market, call it 25 million in revenue and above in commercial banking, and that's everything. Banking products, credit, treasury, investment banking services, and then about a little over a year ago, came over to CrossFirst Bank, and same business. I actually run their corporate banking group here in Kansas City, and soon to be Busey Bank as of March 1st, which is and so we'll be repping the Busey Bank name here in Kansas City, and continuing to grow the commercial banking business here. The other side gig that I have, I actually own a business during COVID, purchased a business not knowing if we were going to continue working in the corporate world. And so I own a small company that makes folding sunglasses. So we take the most popular styles of sunglasses that have been around forever, and we manufacture and engineer them to fold down into half their size. So storage of them is just really convenient, and overall just a cool little utility.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
So one of your first jobs was at Enterprise, and I feel like about 90% of people.
Will Ferrell told everybody that it has a great management training program.
I was going to say, I feel like 90% of people I met, especially in that banking world, started at Enterprise.
Yeah.
What did you learn there that you've continued? Because that seems to be.
It's funny. I think it has to do with that they do such a robust training program and throw you into the wild really quickly, and you're literally learning how to run a business. So not only you're learning how to run a business, you're learning how to work with people at a really young age. You get recruited really quick. I would argue that probably 80% of their employees don't stay much longer than a year, because they get recruited so quickly out. So that's actually what happened to me. I started there in their training program, moved my way up, and then I got recruited over to, at the time it was called Bank One, which is Chicago headquartered bank. Jamie Dimon was the CEO, and then that became JP Morgan Chase.
It's crazy.
Wow.
All right, Scott, your turn.
Russ, what was the most pivotal point in your career?
I think it was when I took over the CEO role at Old World Spices. Thought I was ready for the role. Found out that I really wasn't, and then that's when I sought out additional counsel. I went back and got my MBA at Rockhurst University. So that allowed me to kind of connect to the community, and I joined Acumen, which really helped me. It was a peer advisory group. It was, some really great counsel, and I've made some lifelong friends through that. And so it's continued to keep me connected to the community. It's one thing to be heads down in a business, but it's also you're part of the community, and you should be doing something in your business for the community that you're a part of.
That's very humble of you to say that it was jumping in the CEO role and you weren't ready for it. Where does that come from to be so humble? Because a lot of people don't admit that they weren't ready for it.
Yeah, it's a lot of reflection. Probably if you asked me when I was sitting in the seat that I was like, hey, I'm ready. I was probably, a little bit more egocentric, but looking back on it now, I was like, I had no idea what I was doing. It was just like pushing buttons, pulling levers, and just trying to get through the day. And I think it's a lot of reflection of that, of like going, holy crap, I really don't know what I was doing at that point. So.
Well, it makes people like Aaron, Chris, and the viewers be like, man, you should work with Russ. So it's kind of cool that you feel that way. What was maybe a big lesson learned from a mistake you made?
Yeah, and there was a big one. There was some potholes in the road along the way, and thinking that everything, thinking, hey, you come up with a strategy, oh, this is going to work. but there's this like part of it's like, hey, what if it doesn't work? What are you going to do? And it was a lesson hard learned that we had one really bad year, and we had to roll back a lot of stuff that we had put a lot of time and effort into, and essentially we dismantled it within 30 days and kind of rolled everything back. And it was tough. It meant jobs. It meant people's livelihoods and a lot of promises that we made, and we had to break those. And that was rough.
Okay, so your LinkedIn says you were there, or I guess it's kind of still there because you're still a board member, but 31 years and 7 months. So you saw the entire retail world change, right? From brick and mortar to online. What was the biggest takeaway from that, from seeing the whole world change in your industry?
I would say for us, we dabbled in online because it was up and coming and it was another opportunity. But there was still so much opportunity for us from a brick and mortar standpoint that we hadn't even touched. And so we just we levered our brick and mortar even more, just because it was something that was untapped for our organization.
Crazy. Yeah.
Chris, what was the most pivotal point in your career?
I love when you ask the question I didn't know it was coming.
It secrets out. Questions ahead of time. That's how they agree to come on.
No, so my most pivotal, and actually I would say I had a bunch, but probably the most pivotal happened last year when I finally decided to leave JP Morgan. So I'd been there for 20 years, had been recruited multiple times upon multiple times, but always just felt like I was too scared, I guess, to take the risk and leave. I knew the nature of the beast that I worked for. I was on autopilot for most of my gigs, so I'd start something new, and then I'd get on autopilot after about 2 or 3 years because I knew how to do the job, and then I'd get bored, and then it's time to go start the new thing. And so I did that within JP Morgan 4 or 5 times, but never took any risks. And so I would say that I almost got forced into this one during the COVID times. I was one of those crazies that didn't get vaccinated, and that led to some issues of me having to worry about keeping my job. And so I started looking around, trying to find other opportunities that necessarily weren't requiring me to get vaccinated. And that led into conversations and just kept the conversations going. And I couldn't be happier. This has been the greatest career move I've ever made. I'm working for a great organization that is going to be moving fast and growing fast here in Kansas City and does it right. So I would have never discovered this had I not taken the risk. So that would probably be my biggest one.
I know family and faith is a big part of your life. How old are your kiddos? And we love shouting out other podcasts. Tell us more about other podcasts.
Let's start with the most important person, my wife, Tracy. So Tracy and I have been married. We're going to be 20 years in September. She runs a podcast with her podcast partner, Tori Shira. It's called The Unlikely Housewives. Hopefully they'll be on here soon. But get
them on.
Yeah, I'll work on it. I'm working on it. But Christian-based, faith-based, really it started in the midst of COVID with the idea that all the moms were being told they were parenting wrong. And so they basically started a podcast and said, no, you're parenting right. And the way you do it is the way you do it. So great podcast. And then I have 4 kids. So I have a 16-year-old boy, Parker Stine. I was talking to Aaron before. We're working on his baseball career. He would like to go to college and play baseball. So we're working through that process. A 14-year-old daughter who is currently in the midst of permit driving, which is the scariest thing in my life. A 12-year-old boy that Garrett, my daughter's name is Ryan, son's name Garrett. We're constantly just trying to keep him from breaking bones. Last year, he broke 3 different bones. Plays soccer competitively and got to play, I think, 2 weeks of soccer all of last year. And then my youngest daughter is Braylon, who is the life of the party, actor, musician, soccer player, just always entertaining all of us. So
love it. I do think there should be a support group while you're a working parent trying to get your kid into college.
My wife's podcast can do it.
David says, looking forward to the rest of the show. All right, Russ, here's the deal. How are your 2025 goals going? And how can the Kansas City, remember they're all watching, community help you get there?
Yeah, I'm just looking to connect with other business leaders and CEOs and business owners, and filling out my my Acumen team with folks that are in that right spot. Same journey that I was on was like, hey, I'm new CEO. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Of course, I didn't know that at the time, so it's always hard. It's a hard journey to be on. So I'm just continuing to expand my network and connect with the Kansas City community.
Okay, well, you took 2.5 minutes. So what's the best way to connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place to connect with me, or acumenimpact.com is another great place to connect with me as well.
And when you say you're trying to build your Acumen community, what do good community members of that look like? Like if you could build the perfect one.
Yeah, it's CEOs, business owners that are walking a journey of faith, and so there's aspect of, I think it fills 3 buckets. You've got your business, you got your family, and I think you got your faith. And I think what Acumen does is it connects those three buckets and gives you a pure counsel that is invested in you. They have shared values, and there's connections beyond just those 3 buckets, and kind of pulls those 3 together.
So I feel like CEO is kind of a grayer word than it was 20 years ago, right? So is there like a threshold of like how much revenue they do every year or anything like that?
Yeah, I put them in 2 teams, to kind of 2 different buckets, so that owners or CEOs of $2 to $20 million businesses, their problems are different than the folks that are going from 20 to 100. Because my career spanned both those sides, so I understood that, like, hey, to get to 20, that was a big accomplishment, but go from 20 to 100 is a whole nother set of concerns and opportunities and challenges. So we try and put folks in those 2 different buckets, and we're somewhat industry agnostic at this point of building out the team. We try and keep keep competitors kind of in 2 separate buckets as well.
Cool. So if somebody fell within that, they were interested in this, they would just reach out to you on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Okay.
And Russ is very receptive on LinkedIn. How do you pick and choose who you network with, Russ?
It's always personable. I always like to meet people face to face, and they got to be humble for one. Smart. They've got to know that where they're at in that, and they got to be hungry. I mean, there's to join in and spend the time with a group like that. It's like, hey, I want to get better. I want to improve my business. I want to drive growth in my business, and so we call it kind of hungry, humble, and smart.
I feel like that humble word is tricky when you're also talking about growing your brand online, right? Because sometimes then you gotta kind of. So make sure that you meet them in person before you make that decision. Because I'll be helping to brag about all their stuff so they can grow their brand. All right, Chris, how are your 2025 goals going, and how can the Kansas City community help you?
We're already almost through a first quarter of 2025, which really freaks me out. So because I have 2 different sides of my corporate world, we'll start with my day job. So 2025 is going great. I'm really excited about this merger that's happening. It's going to bring just a whole new solution set that we don't currently offer for our clientele and our prospects. Working with rock stars like Russ and Scott, and just getting introduced to middle market size companies here in Kansas City. I'm on Russ's side on the fact that really I'm a generalist, so any client is a good client, but I really like clients where I personally can enjoy their company and being around them. We do a lot of entertaining. I want to go to a Royals game or a Chiefs game, and I want to actually be able to sit with you for a whole game and be able to have conversation and talk about our families and talk about life goals and things that are more than just how much money is in your checking account. But I really think that those goals are going to be met just by continuing to network. We do a lot of really creative things here at CrossFirst, and I think that when you start looking at how to build a business here and build a portfolio of relationships, it really does come down to that personal network that can introduce you to people, because there's that warm connection. So that side is that. 2025 for Foldies, that's the name of my sunglasses company, really creative. We're growing, so it's going to be through corporate opportunities, event planning opportunities. We're talking to a couple golf companies across the country to start carrying these things. So you talk about online presence, that's a start of it, but the growth of this business is really going to start to come from just some really unique partnerships that get our name out there. We've done some deals with some large corporations where we've supplied sunglasses for their just giveaway stuff. I'm hoping maybe somebody listen to this LinkedIn deal knows somebody that knows somebody to connect me with the team that's running the World Cup. I think it would be amazing to figure out how a local branded company here in Kansas City could figure out how to team up with the World Cup. And then we got some interesting stuff going on the investor side that could bring a local powerhouse to the partner team of Foldies that would blow up our name here, I think, and blow it up outside of Kansas City as well. So tons of stuff, never stops. And oh yeah, I got to get my kid recruited to play baseball. So I'm doing that all year too.
Chris, where'd you go to high school and how did we meet?
Blue Valley Northwest. I grew up in first part of my life in Gladstone, Missouri. Second part of my life in Overland Park, and ended up at getting to choose to go to Blue Valley Northwest. We were the first class to go freshman through senior. So aging myself a little bit, but I graduated in 97. Scott and I met actually through a friend of mine that is one of his colleagues. And after meeting, found out we both went to Northwest. Then we got kind of more connected, where we started figuring out we knew a lot of the same people. And now we're part of speaking of networking, Blue Valley Northwest alumni networking event. So yeah, we met through mutual friends, and then kind of just figured out how we can make that work on the business side. So
fun Blue Valley Northwest fact that I have. My kids are auditioning for Newsies on Friday. And you need a lot of boys for Newsies. So my son has been actively recruiting. So there's about 10 Blue Valley Northwest boys coming to do it, because all the good dancer boys in town right now go to Blue Valley Northwest.
I actually, when we did Scott and I did a tour of the school, and that was one of the conversations that they were having, is that the arts program is blowing up at Blue Valley Northwest.
Yeah, so we're at Olathe East, which is has been the strongest one for years, but Blue Valley Northwest is coming straight up.
Great to hear.
The schools are so close, they all know each other. So
I'd like to say that's my fault, but that's not my fault.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. You guys heard him. Chris and Russ, the best place to connect with them is right here on LinkedIn. If you're watching on Facebook or YouTube, make sure you go find them on LinkedIn. Thank you so much to Evardy and to Bestway International for sponsoring us. And as always, Scott, thanks so much for co-hosting. I'm glad you could make it today.
Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.